Hello, travelers. Boardman21 here. Today I got a 1 to 75 Paladin leveling guide for you, and this is going to be based with no uniques, no required gear, and everything unique can be found as a solo experience. The main two affixes that you're going to want to stack on this build is just going to be healing effectiveness and mana. That's it. Two very common affixes that you can get on everything, and the more of you get, the more damage you do. So this scales all the way to level 100 in the end game, as long as you're getting more healing effectiveness and more mana, and that goes all the way up to tier 7, even legendaries on uniques if you want. However, no uniques are required to make this build work. And this build will start off with using Hammer Throw as your main damage source. We'll play it in a Nova form until about level 50, 55. Switch over to Judgement, which is going to have an aura that's not only going to heal you every second, but is going to kill enemies the entire time that they're inside of that aura. And you can pretty much almost get to 100% uptime with it, as long as you get a few kills with it and reduce that cooldown of VR. And that'll be the other main interaction with the skills, is you're going to be casting Judgement, consuming all of your mana with it, and then using Volatile Reversal to get all of that mana back. We'll start out with a two-handed weapon just to get a ton of extra percent increase. It's damage, physical damage for the hammers. Later it'll be percent spell damage and percent elemental damage over time, or just damage over time for the concentrated aura that we'll have. And then later we'll switch to a one-handed shield, because you can get just as much flat damage through passives in the Paladin tree once you have enough passives. But this leveling guide, again, requires no uniques. Everything unique can be found. And again, I'll have all the timestamps spaced out when I put my points in the skill tree for you to follow. The build planner will only have the skills and passives in it. It will not have the gear that I currently had, as it would have taken forever to manually put that in, since we can no longer automatically update it. I also ran this entire character without using a loot filter, so I also do not have one of those for you. But you can generate one on Damit's website if you go ahead and put all the gear and what affixes you need there. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, travelers, we are now level 4, which means we get to spec into our first skill, which is going to be Hammer Throw. Now remember, this is a Judgement leveling guide, so once we unlock Judgement, which will be around level 40-ish, we'll switch over to that. It'll be all melee damage. But early on, we're going to do Hammer Throw. You can do Warpath if you just want to do melee through the entire game. But we're going to start with throwing, so Hammer Throw will be our main skill. But first, our character sheet. Resistances are some of the main things you want to get. They're going to be the first line of defense that you want, and Void Resist is going to be the most important this early on in the game, so look for that as much as you can. For skills, at level 4 you can spec into your first one. We're going to go ahead and specialize into Hammer Throw, and our first point is going to go into Winged Hammers. We're going to work into getting extra projectiles and flat added damage for it, just to do as much damage as we can. In the latest patch, they made it where you can do a lot more added damage on a lot more gear slots, so we're going to just see how much damage we can get out of it, especially early on in the game. For passives, we got 2 points. We're going to be throwing our first 8 points into Juggernaut for that Void Resist. The Strength also gives us increased damage, which will help with the damage we do with Hammer Throw as well. So 2 points into Juggernaut. And then for my items, you can see so far, I got a couple of magic items. We have a sword with melee added damage. Again, this is going to do nothing for Hammer Throw, but if you are using Warpath, it's a little extra damage. And then, like I said, the throwing damage, which you can put on relics, gloves, belt, and one other slot, is going to be your main source of increased or added flat increased damage. So it's going to give you a ton more damage. You can put it on those 4 slots, so look for as much of that as you can before we get Judgment. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 10 when we spec into our next skill. Alright, travelers, we are now level 8. We get to spec into our second specialization skill, which we're going to go with Lunge just for a little bit more movement. We're also going to be able to put more points into Hammer Throw, which is going to give us some AoE, so the clear will feel much better. First, the character sheet, though, again, at this point, Physical and Void Resist are the main things you really want to go for. Remember that for every level area that you go up, mobs are getting 1% more penetration, so to counteract that, you want to get your resistance up, and your survivability will go hand in hand with that. You'll feel much better the higher your resist is. And again, it's color coded, so whatever mob is hitting you, if you are dying from something, the color of it is the resist you should go for. But again, Void is going to be the main thing you run into at this point. For skills, we got 2 more points for Hammer Throw. We're going to go ahead and throw 1 point into Steadfast Path. Gives us a chance to do double damage. However, the hammers will no longer come back to us, which means we're only going to get half as many hits with them when we throw them out. But we do get 1 point in Catapult, so we will now throw out 3 hammers instead of just 1, and this will allow us to get some AoE to help with the clear. And then for the second skill that we're going to specialize into, for now we're going to go with Lunge. Later we'll go to Shield Rush as our movement skill so we can fly through maps. But for now, we're going to go with Lunge. And our first point's going to go ahead and go into Dawn Charge so that we gain back some of our missing health when we use it. Which will be nice as we don't have any health on hit or any leech at the moment to regain health. Once we get Judgment later in the game, that skill will be activated all the time because we will run the aura with it, and that'll be healing us every second, so that's how we'll get our life back later in the game. Then for passives, we got 4 more points. We're going to throw all 4 of them into Juggernaut. This is going to give us more Void Resist, and the strength, of course, will increase the damage that we're getting. And then for our items, again, our gloves can have added throwing damage, and our amulet can have throwing damage. Once we find a belt, we'll get some throwing damage on that as well. It's going to make Hammer feel really, really good early in the game with all that extra added throwing damage. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 13 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 11, and we have some more points to put into our skills. But first, the character sheet. Again, right now, Void and Physical is some of the main things you're running into. Fire resistance also helps, and as a Paladin, you'll get that with the Void Resist as the passive skill. But again, if you're dying a lot, it's probably from Void damage, so try and get as much Void Resist as possible. For skills, we got 2 more points for Hammer Throw. We've decided that we're going to go with Nova. This is going to give us double the projectiles and shoot them in all directions. Also gives us a bunch more additional physical flat damage, which we will be able to scale up with increased damage. And then we're going to go ahead and put 1 point in Rapid Throw. Remember, now that the hammers do not come back to us, we want to just throw them as fast as possible to get as much damage out. And now we'll be throwing in all directions, so we don't even have to aim. So it should feel really good for clearing just about anything. You can just keep lunging forward, throw some Novas, lunge forward, throw some Novas. Really simple. And then for lunge, we got 3 more points for it as well. We're going to throw all 3 into Juggernaut Dash to give us some block chance after we have lunged, and all of this is going to be to unlock Unstoppable, so that while we are lunging, we will be invulnerable, so you can lunge through all sorts of effects from mobs. For passives, we got 4 more points. We're going to go ahead and cap out that Juggernaut for the Strength, Fire, and Void Resist, and then 2 points into Armor Clad. This will be the next thing we work into maxing out, and that's going to be for the additional armor, so we take less damage, and then of course for the damage taken from nearby enemies being reduced, which will be really nice when we're in the thick of it. And this also unlocks Shield Rush, so if you want to switch at this point, you can, and that will mean you can get rid of Lunge and use Shield Rush instead. For now, we're just going to leave Lunge. We're not going to swap skills just yet, but towards the end game, we will switch to Shield Rush and use it to go all the way through maps without stopping. And then for the inventory, again, we have some throwing damage that we have found for the relic. We found some for the belt. Then we also have it on the gloves and the amulet, and that's why our damage is as high as it is. It still feels a little low, but again, it's doing great damage, and clear is still pretty good. Again, remember, once we get Judgment, we're going to be going full melee, so you can also be stacking melee damage and just running Warpath instead if you want. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 20 when we spec into our 3rd skill. Alright, travelers, we are now level 20, which means we get to spec into our third skill. Currently, we have quite a bit of void resist. That is still kind of the main thing we're going for. At this point, though, physical resist would be another good one to really have. We don't have any of it at the moment, but our survivability hasn't been that bad. If you are having survivability issues, then you can go to Warpath, and again, just do a melee skill and get health on hit on your weapon, and that'll really help. For us, for hammer throw, we're just using potions and just recovering from that. For skills, we got 2 more points for hammer throw. We're going to throw both of them into weighted hammers. This will slow the projectiles down a little bit, but we'll do 30% more damage. Then we have 3 points for lunge. We're going to throw 1 more point in Juggernaut Dash for that 100% block chance while we are lunging. And then we're also going to put 1 point in Unstoppable, so now we'll be invulnerable. But if you do have like health on block, you'll still be blocking at the same time, so you can get a little bit of health back at the same time. And then the last point we're going to put into Disarming Blow to start putting frailty on the enemies that we hit when we get to them with lunge. For the third skill, we're going to be doing Holy Aura once we get the mastery, but for now, temporarily, we're going to do Javelin, and we're going to use this for the banner so that we can heal ourselves, just as some extra healing. So we're going to go ahead and put 1 point in Mighty Delivery, and then 1 point into Burning Strength, 1 point into Siege Barrage, and then 1 point into Battle Standard. And what this does is it's going to have Javelin come down. You'll get damage per point of attunement, but it also... Hold on, that's not it. Where's the healing? Yeah, we need 1 more point in Battle of Restoration. Okay. Well, now we have Battle Standard, so we'll need 1 more point into Banner of Restoration, and then when that banner comes down, when you're around it, you'll get the healing per second. So we'll just need a couple more points, but that'll help you with survivability as well. Then for passive, we have 12 points. We're only going to put 7 more in here and save the rest for the Paladin once we unlock the Mastery, which we will soon. So 3 more points into Armor Clad for that reduced damage taken from nearby enemies, as well as the flat armor. And then 7 points into Fearless for all that vitality, as well as increased health regen. This also unlocks Smite, if that's a skill you want to play with, but we won't be playing with it here. Again, we do have 2 more points, but we're going to wait till we unlock the Paladin to start putting points into here to try and get to Judgment as soon as possible. And then for our items, at this point, again, just throwing damage. We have it on the gloves, the belt, the relic, and the amulet. We also have increased hammer throw damage, which we found on a helmet, so that helps as well. And then all the other slots just get as much increased resistance as you can for your survivability. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 25 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 25, and it is time to choose our mastery now that we're in the end of time, as well as change one of our skills. We're going to be getting rid of the banner, rid of Javelin, and then going on, and once we select the Paladin, going into Holy Aura, which you'll have a couple of options with. But first, the character sheet. At this point, we did cap out our Void, but going into Chapter 4 and leaving the End of Time, Necrotic and Physical are going to be the two main things you want. I was trying to get a little bit of Necrotic, but I haven't got any yet. But Necrotic is going to be a big thing you start running into, so if you die, that's probably going to be the reason at this point. However, the survivability of this character is pretty good. It is a Paladin, one of the tankier classes in the game. For skills, like I said, we're going to switch some things around, but first we're going to go ahead and choose the mastery just so we can swap it here. So click on your guy, and then we will choose the Paladin, which is going to give us access to Holy Aura. It also lets us do increased fire and physical damage, increased to the percent of remaining health. So if you're always at full health, you get 100% increased fire, lightning, and physical damage. Now we're doing physical damage with Hammer Throw, but later with Judgment, it'll switch over to fire damage. So either way, we're going to take advantage of that. We also get increased healing effectiveness per point of attunement based on this, which is awesome because when we switch over to Judgment later, healing effectiveness is going to be a huge thing for us, as Judgment will have the aura that does heal us, which is going to be great. So we're going to go ahead and choose that mastery, confirm it. It's permanent. You can't change it. And then, like I said, we're going to unspec the Javelin skill, and we're going to go ahead and throw Holy Aura in there. We have 4 points with it. We're going to go ahead and throw 2 points into Call of Arms for the physical damage and 2 points into Strength from Afar for the increased throwing attack damage. And next we'll be able to get more throwing attack speed, as well as have a chance to gain haste on hit, which is going to be awesome. So with that haste, you can throw a hammer and then you can start running, and when it gets a hit, there's a chance you'll get haste, and then you can move even faster. So it'll speed up the game just a little bit for us. If you're having trouble surviving, I don't recommend going with this offense. Instead, put your points into Shelter from the Storm. This will give you more resist and some endurance, which will help you stay alive a lot better. We got 2 more points for Lunge. Both of them are going to go into Disarming Blow for that frailty chance when we hit the enemy with it. And then with Hammer Throw, we have thrown some more points into the weighted hammer, so we're going to just keep doing that until it is completely capped out for that increased damage. Then for passives, we got 7 points. We're going to throw all 7 of them into the Paladin tree. All 7 of them will go into Conviction for the increased physical damage and the physical penetration. Again, for now, we're doing all physical, but later when we switch over to Judgment, it's going to be fire. We also get fire penetration and fire damage with this node, so we're going to be keeping the points there the whole time. You won't have to respec later. And then for our inventory, again, at this point, just get as much added flat throwing damage as you can. Get as much increased physical damage as you can. We're throwing that on our weapon. If you have a two-handed weapon, your survivability is good. You don't need a shield. Throw on a two-handed sword or whatever with as much increased physical damage as you can, and your hammers will hit even harder. But that's going to be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 30-31 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 31. We've capped down our Void Resist. We are in Chapter 4. We're about to take on Hearten, who's going to do a ton of necrotic damage. So necrotic resist, again, is very important at this point. You want to get as much of that as possible. Physical is also important, and then your elemental, not so much, because Holy Aura will give a ton of that to you, so you don't have to worry about it too much. And then poison will start to work on last after we've gotten the necrotic and physical up. Also, endurance is a big one, but we're going to get that through passives, and you get some of that through Holy Aura as well, so it's not something you have to look for too much on gear, but endurance will help you stay alive as well. For skills, we got 2 more points for Hammer Throw. We're going to throw both of them into the weighted hammers for 30% more damage. For Lunge, we're going to get rid of it and go Shield Rush so we can start going zoom through the map. If you like Lunge, go ahead and keep it. But for me, I'm going to despecialize it, and then I have 5 points, which I'm going to throw into Shield Rush. We are also using a two-handed staff with as much increased resistance or increased physical damage as we can get. So one thing that we're going to want is to not have to have a shield to be able to use Shield Rush. So we're going to put 2 points in Consuming Path and 1 point in Dark Rush. So we no longer have to have a shield, which will allow us to use it with whatever two-handed weapon we have. Again, we're using a two-handed weapon for all that increased physical damage, because that's what our hammers are doing. All the rest of it is going to go into Rush Mastery for as much mana efficiency as possible. We're going to cap that out next so that it doesn't take all of our mana, so we can keep throwing those hammers. And then for Holy Aura, we got 5 more points. We're going to throw 3 of them into Expedite for that throwing attack speed. This will also give us a chance to gain haste so we can move faster. And then the last 2 points, both from Strength from Afar. Again, if you're going defensive, make sure to cap out that Shelter from the Storm for that extra 25% elemental resist, as well as 15% increased endurance. Remember, these are doubled while Holy Aura is active, so it's a ton of resistance and a ton of endurance, which will really help your survivability. Then for passives, we got 9 more points. We're going to put all of them into the Paladin. We're going to cap out the Conviction. We're going to put 2 points in Valor for that health. Then we're going to throw 5 points in Blinding Light so that we get 10% endurance. Again, that's going to be huge for your survivability. This also unlocks Sigils of Hope, which is something we'll build into later just for more damage, more health regen. And then, of course, we're going to put the last point we have into Holy Icon and start building into that Necrotic Resist. You can get up to 49% of your Necrotic Resist from right here. The extra health helps, and the healing effectiveness, of course, will be super helpful once we unlock Judgment and start using it. So last point there. And then for our items, again, we're using a two-handed staff at the moment for the increased physical damage, which is huge. We've got the added throwing damage on the gloves, the belt, the relic, and the amulet. We also got a rare fix of increased hammer throw damage on the helm, and everywhere else just resistances or health, anything you need to survive. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 40 for the next one. Alright, Travelers, we are now level 35, which means we get to spec into our 4th skill. But first, the character sheet. We currently have about 600 health. We have capped out Void Resist. Again, working on Necrotic and Physical at this point. We're getting a ton of our Elemental and what will be Poison Resist coming out of the Holy Aura skill tree. And then for Necrotic, we'll be getting a lot of that from our passives as we continue to build into those. So that'll help you out there as well. But again, you want to cap out all your resistances at this point. Just start working towards all of them. Armor's helpful, and then again, endurance is a big thing, which you're going to get from both your passives in your passive tree, and then you're also going to get it from Holy Aura as well. But getting that endurance up to the cap of 60% is going to help with your survivability big time. Then for skills, we got 1 more point for Hammer Throw. We're going to go ahead and throw it into Rapid Throw so we attack a little faster. For Shield Rush, we already threw 3 points into Rush Mastery, but we're going to go ahead and throw another 1 into that. This is going to give us that maximum mana efficiency, so it's not taking all of our mana, really reduce that cost. After this, you can put points wherever you want. I'm going to continue building into the increased damage with it. We are wearing a staff at the moment with the increased physical damage, so it does do good damage with the explosion at the end against mobs. For Holy Aura, we got 2 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw both of them into Call to Arms for that physical damage. Our survivability, of course, is doing really good right now, so I haven't had to build into Shelter from the Storm just yet. And then for our 4th skill, we're going to go with Volatile Reversal, but we will have to put our passive points in there first. So we got 6 passive points. We're going to throw 1 point into Holy Icon.
That's for more necrotic resist, healing effectiveness, and health. And then we're going to throw 5 points in Void Knight just so we can unlock that volatile reversal. 5 points are all going to go into Abyssal Endurance, give us more health, more void resist, and more physical resist, which will be nice. And now that we have volatile reversal unlocked, we'll go back to skills. We'll go ahead and spec into volatile reversal with 5 points. We're going to go ahead and put 1 of them into time sap, 3 of them into warped time, so we get increased attack speed with it. And then 1 point into Traveler's Fatigue for that reduced cooldown recovery. We're going to be maxing out this, maxing out the time sap. We're also going to put a point into time loss vitality eventually, and then maxing out the move speed. So after you use it, you're going to get your mana back, which when we use Judgment, it's going to be consuming our mana, so we're just kind of setting it up for that. But for now, we really want that attack speed because we're using Hammer Throw, and it's going to let us attack much, much faster with it, just to give us overall higher DPS. And then for our items, wearing all the same items that we've had. Again, going for as much increased physical damage as you can get right now. Throwing damage on everything you can get, and after that, just all the resistances that you need to cap that you haven't capped already. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 42 for the next one. We are now level 42, and it is time for another update. Again, we're working on all of our resistances. Again, most of the elemental and the poison you're going to get out of Holy Aura as we continue to spec into it. The physical, the void, and the necrotic, a lot of that's going to come from passives as we continue to put more points into that. So all of your resistances should be covered at this point. Critical strike avoidance and endurance are a couple of things you just want to keep putting into. Endurance, again, is also one you'll get out of passives and Holy Aura. Getting any additional armor and just increasing your total health is going to really help your survivability. We haven't had an issue with it on this build. We've only died 1 time, and it was early on, so survivability's been pretty good. For skills, we got 2 more points for Hammer Throw. We're not going to spec into Judgment until we get our 5th skill opened up, so on the next update we'll finally go into Judgment. But right now, 2 more points into Hammer Throw. We're going to go ahead and throw both of them into Rapid Throw so we can cast it even faster. For Shield Rush, we got 3 more points. Again, you can put these points anywhere you want. I'm going to go ahead and throw 2 more into Consuming Path so it does some more damage. And then we're going to start building into getting the final Echo, the explosion at the end, to do a little extra damage. So 1 point into Warrior's Entrance. Then we got 3 points for Holy Aura. We're going to cap out the Call to Arms for that increased physical damage. And then 2 points in Shelter from the Storm for the Elemental Resist and the Endurance, just to give us a boost of endurance. We are going to start working towards that poison resist that cleanses our ailments as well. This will help if we get slowed or get poisoned. We can just activate it and cleanse that out, as well as give ourselves additional resist. And then 7 points of volatile reversal. We're going to cap out the time sap, then we're going to cap out the catching up, put 1 point into time loss vitality, and then cap out the traveler's fatigue. Again, our 5th skill going to be Judgment, which we're going to unlock with our passives here in a second, but we're not going to spec into it until level 50. Then for passives, we got 11 points. We're going to cap out the Blinding Light, we're going to cap out the Holy Icon, and then all the rest of our points are going to go into Dedication for that attunement and increased mana regen. This will help us cast more hammers at the moment, as well as use Shield Rush more often, but getting all of that mana is going to set us up really nicely for when we do get the Judgment, because we're going to want as much max mana as possible, consume it all at once for all that damage. Mana regen's not a big thing because volatile reversal is going to give it all back the moment we use it. But for now, that is the main thing we'll build into as we work towards getting Reverence of Duality. This will be the next one that we'll want to max out as soon as possible. And then for our inventory, Again, no uniques required for this build, nothing special. We're still using hammer throw, so any flat added throwing damage, increased physical damage, put it on every slot you can. That throwing damage can go on the relic, it can go on the amulet, the belt, the gloves, and then any weapon that you can possibly get that has increased physical damage is going to be awesome. Two-handers come with more than the one-handers. We have a staff. The staff helps shield rush do a little extra spell damage, which is nice. And that's just how we have it set up. But that's it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 50 when we spec into Judgment. Level 50, which means we get to spec into our 5th skill. But first, our resistances. As you can see here, we are building them up. We're slowly getting them up. When we have Holy Aura active, as you can see, our elemental's pretty close to capped. We're still working a bit on physical. We'll get a little bit of poison once we take that node inside of Holy Aura. And then our necrotic and our void, we can finish out with just passive points later in the game. So the main thing you want to be going for at this point, once those resistances are that high, is make sure you get that endurance up to 60%, get as much endurance threshold as you can get, and then start working on that critical strike avoidance. You want to get your CSA up to 100% so you can't be critically struck. Of course, we are going to get some CSA out of passives, so that will definitely help, and you can always get a blessing later in the end game. For skills, we got one more point for Hammer Throw. We're going to throw it into Guardian Zeal so we can start getting stacks of Zeal, which give us increased damage and crit chance. The increased damage is nice for both the Hammer Throw and for the Judgment, as well as the crit chance will be nice for the Hammer Throw. Then we got 2 points for Shield Rush. We're going to start building towards the final hit damage, so 1 more point in Warrior's Entrance, and then 1 point in Echoes of the Charge. For Holy Aura, 1 more point. We're going to throw it into Shelter of the Storm for the Elemental Resist and Endurance. Of course, those stats are doubled while it's active. 3 more points for Volatile Reversal, 1 point in Terminal Void Rift, and then 2 points in Dark Expanse. We're going to start building into the Harbinger of Dust so that we can make enemies take additional damage that have been hit by the Rift caused by the Volatile Reversal. And then the final skill will be Judgment, but first we got to put our passive points in to unlock it. We're going to go ahead and cap out the Dedication for that mana regen and attunement, and then the final 2 points in Faith Armor. We're going to cap this next to get that increased armor, that critical strike avoidance, and then right after that we'll build into the Reverence of Duality for that increased health, damage, mana, and healing effectiveness. This did unlock Judgment, so we'll now put that in as our 5th skill. We're going to go ahead and take the aura right off the bat, so 2 points in Sanctified Serenity, 2 points in Lingering Force, and 1 point in Anointed, so that we now have an aura around us. At the same time, eventually we're going to want to make the duration the full time so that you can have it up as much as possible without having to recast, as it does have a mana cost, and that's going to compete with your hammers. But for now, the other 2 points we're going to put in Divine Destruction, and then start building into Pious Offering to get that current mana consumed so that we can get more damage per mana that is consumed, and that's going to give us a ton of damage with it. It is going to compete with Hammer Throw, but the thing that you have is that you're going to use it, you're going to Volatile Reversal, get all your mana back, and then you can start shooting hammers, and you're getting damage from 2 different skills at the same time, which will be really nice. And for the inventory, nothing's changed here again. But at this point, we have a ton of throwing added damage and a ton of physical damage. We are going to start wanting to get melee damage as well as increased melee damage and increased fire damage to do as much damage as possible with that fire. But we're going to try and do a hybrid where we're using the hammers and Judgment, so keep as much throwing damage as you can. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 55 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 55, and it is time to make some changes as we fully transition over from being a hammered in build to doing Judgment, which is going to change. We're going to be doing a lot more spell damage, fire damage instead of physical damage, and throwing damage. So a lot of things to change. But first, the resistances. Right now, you kind of want to cap out everything. You're in the end game, especially on that first timeline. The boss is going to be necrotic and physical, so make sure you have those two capped before you do the final boss. Again, at this point, get your endurance up to 60% and start getting that critical strike avoidance. You want to get that to 100% as soon as you can. For skills, we got one more point for hammer throw. We're going to throw it into Guardian Zeal for that increased damage. The crit chance for hammers is nice, but the increased damage overall globally is really nice for your other skills like Judgment. For Shield Rush, we got one more point. We're going to go ahead and put it into Stretch Time for that increased echo damage. That's going to be the final hit you do with Shield Rush when you run into a bunch of enemies. For Holy Aura, we got one more point. We're going to respec some things on here. So the one point that we do have, we're going to go ahead and throw it into Rehaz's Devotion as we work towards getting the fire penetration to increase the judgment damage. And then we're going to start putting points in Vital Boon, the Poison Resist, and then of course the increased healing for that healing effectiveness, which is a big boost for us for judgment damage. We're no longer doing throwing as our main damage, so we're going to go ahead and get 3 points out of Expedite. Then we're going to remove the 4 points from Strength from Afar. And then we're going to remove the 5 points from Call to Arms because we no longer need that physical damage, as Judgment is going to be fire and spell damage. And we can still put 3 points in there since we went below that. So 2 points into Rehaz's Fury for that Fire Pen, and then 1 point into Vital Boon. Again, once we have 2 points into this, we're going to start going into that Poison Resist, the Cleansing of Elements when we use it, and then that Healing Effectiveness. Remember, this is doubled, so when we use it, we'll get 80%. That's an 80% boost of damage, as well as it'll give you 16 flat damage for Judgment, because Judgment gets 1 more flat spell damage per 5% healing effectiveness that you have. So that's a huge boost of damage as well. And then for Volatile Reversal, we have thrown a couple more points in here. One of them being in Traveler's Frailty. This is just to increase that recovery time so that we could use it more often. You want to use it every time you use Judgment to get all that mana back. And then we've got 1 more point for Judgment. We've thrown some points in here in the last few levels. Make sure that you have at least 3 points in Pyre Softening and at least 1 point in the Destructive Impact. This 30% area is huge. We're going to max this out eventually, but right now the damage is more important just to kill things as we run by. So this last point we have going into Pious Offering. And then make sure you have the duration as long as possible because you will be waiting on the cooldown of Volatile Reversal. Then for passives, we got 5 more points. We're going to go ahead and throw 4 of them into Faith Armor for that increased armor, as well as that critical strike avoidance. You get up to 40% right here. If you mix that with a blessing of critical strike avoidance, you can be completely covered just through those. And you can also get critical strike avoidance on both the Helm Implicit and Chest Implicit, so you don't even have to craft it as a suffix on any of your gear. The last point's going to go ahead and go into Reverie of Duality. This gives us the health, the damage, the healing effectiveness, and the mana. The mana, the healing effectiveness, and the damage are all damage boosts for us. So this is a triple damage boost. The next 11 points we get will all go into here. And then for our items, you do want to make sure that when you are using Judgment, you want to make sure to have a 2-handed staff on, or at least a 1-handed staff, and then change your passives around to get the increased spell damage if you have a shield on. And the reason for that spell damage is going to be a huge amount of damage for Judgment and that consecrated aura that you have. We have a Spine Rod on, which gives us that spell damage, and then of course we have damage over time because Concentrated Aura is a dot skill. So huge amount of damage for us coming from that. And then on our gear, we're going to start switching over to increased fire damage and increased healing effectiveness instead of throwing damage and physical damage like we were before. So start making that switch, and you'll start seeing your damage go through the roof. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 65 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 65. First, we got the character sheet. So, our elemental is pretty close to capped, especially when we have Holy Aura active. You can see they are all capped, cold and fire being overcapped a little bit. We're still working on the physical resist and our void and necrotic. Our poison, again, when that Holy Aura is up, it's doubled, so you get about 40%, but our last four here, we are working towards getting them capped. At the same time, our endurance is getting higher as well, especially when you have Holy Aura active. That also goes up from that 43% to 52%, so we almost got that capped. And then critical strike avoidance, we're at 30%, so we've got that up quite a bit as well. But again, you want to cap out that CSA, get to that 60% endurance. That's even fine if you get to 51% and then it's capped when Holy Aura is active, although that won't be 100% of the time. And then getting your other resistance up will be that final destination for getting your defense all capped out before you get to that empowered content. And then for skills, we got 10 more points for Javelin. Now with Javelin, we got rid of Hammer Throw and we switched it out because we just weren't using it anymore and we wanted to use Holy Trail. So get rid of Hammer Throw and put into Javelin. We've got 1 point in Mighty Delivery here, 1 point in Burning Strength, 3 points in Spear to the Thigh for that damage over time, 1 point in Holy Trail, so that you do that trail that gets put out in front of you. If you stand on it, you'll get healed. On top of that, this does fire and lightning damage, and fire damage being the main thing that we're scaling is going to allow it to do lots of damage. 1 point in Path of Judgment for that spell damage per 5% increased healing effectiveness is great because we're stacking healing effectiveness for the damage with Judgment. And then 1 point in Pilgrimage for that increased fire and lightning damage. Again, fire damage and fire damage over time going to be the main things that we're going for. We've got 10 more points. We're going to go ahead and cap out the Pilgrimage. We're going to cap out the Spear to the Thigh. And with our last points, you can put them wherever you want. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and go with 4 more in Mighty Delivery and then work down towards them shredding the armor, just so that we can do a little bit more damage with anything that does hits, which is the initial damage we do with Judgment. We got 2 more points for Shield Rush. You can put them wherever you want. I'm going to throw 2 more to stretch time for that final hit. Echo damage. Again, we are wearing a staff, so this is spell damage. It does decent damage. It's enough to kill some trash mobs here and there, but nothing too significant. And then for Holy Aura, we have 7 more points. We did make some changes with this. We did put another point in Vital Boon and 2 of them into Redemption. We're going to put another 2 into Redemption to cap that out for as much healing effectiveness as we can get, especially when it's active. We're going to cap out the Shelter from the Storm for that extra elemental resist and endurance. This will get us much closer to that cap. And then with our final 3 points, we're going to go ahead and put them into basically anything that you want. But for me, I'm going to put them into Slow Chance when active, so that mobs that are chasing me, fall behind while I'm waiting for cooldowns, either on Volatile Reversal or on Judgment. And then the last point you can put anywhere. A little dodge doesn't hurt. If you have a shield, we're wearing a two-handed, so we don't really have any block. You could do block effectiveness with health on block, but for us, I'm just going to go with the dodge rating. It's not really going to make a difference. Put it anywhere else that you want. For Volatile Reversal, 2 more points. We're going to put 1 more Dark Expanse and then 1 point in Harbinger of Dust, so that when we do use Volatile Reversal, we'll usually be right on top of mobs. When they're hit by that rift, they'll now take a more modifier. This will make them take 10% more damage, up to 30% once we cap it out. And then for Judgment, we have 2 more points. For this, we're going to go ahead and increase the area. We did end up completely capping out the Pious Offering so that we consume 100% of our current mana, and for every 1 mana that is consumed, it's 2% more damage, so we're stacking as much mana as possible. The biggest way, fastest way to scale the damage of this. For those 2 points, we want a bigger area, so we're going to put them both into Destructive Impact to have a much larger area, so we can just use Shield Rush and run through while it's active, and everything will die that we pass through. For passive, we got 10 more points. We're going to throw all 10 of them into Reverence of Duality. This gives us increased health for survivability. It's also going to give us that increased damage. That's just straight more damage for us. The healing effectiveness, which also is converted to damage because for every 5% healing effectiveness, we get more flat spell damage. And then the increased mana, of course, that mana is going to increase our flat maximum amount of mana. And each one of those, like we just went over, gives us % more damage with Judgment. So it's a triple damage boost for us by putting points into that. And then for the inventory, again, we're not doing any uniques on this build. If you have the Hands of Judgment, the gloves for Judgment, your damage will be much, much higher than ours, but ours is already killing things in basically 1 second, which is really cool, and you can definitely wear those. But again, it's a leveling guide, no uniques. So the main things you're going for right now is going to be attunement, flat mana, increased mana, and then of course you want fire damage over time, elemental damage over time, increased fire damage, increased spell damage, and that's pretty much everything that's going to give you the biggest boost of damage. After that, get as much resist or anything else you need for defense, increase your maximum health, And that'll be it for this update, and I'll see you guys at level 75 for the final one.
Alright, travelers, we are now level 75. At this point, we're capping out the rest of our resistances. A little bit more physical necrotic and poison is all that I need. The elementals, of course, when Holy Aura is activated, is going to be capped. We have it activated on autocast. Mana is not too much of an issue at this point. We have over 600, so we can have it on autocast while we're going. I'll just activate it now so you can see what we're sitting at. As you can see, they're all capped, so you're good to go there. But physical, poison, necrotic, still working on those. For our endurance, we're sitting at 49%. Again, when Holy Aura is activated, we're at capped at our 60%. We do need a little bit more threshold, and then our critical strike avoidance, we do need a bit more there, but an empowered blessing of critical strike avoidance will cap that on as well, or a chest or helm implicit with a pretty good roll will also get you towards the cap on that. And then we have healing effectiveness. I'm sitting at 375% on this build. Definitely get much higher. Remember that healing effectiveness is going to not only give you better healing when you have the aura going, but you're also going to get flat spell damage for every 5% you have, so it's really going to help your damage. So get as much healing effectiveness as you can on top of stacking mana. That'll be your 2 damage things for this build. For skills, we're going to change some stuff around. We're not using Javelin, so I'm going to go ahead and respect that. If you're using it, keep going, but I'm just going to go ahead and put Sigils of Hope on, and Sigils can proc on a % chance on kill, so it's not going to take our mana. We're just going to let it proc whenever we're getting kills, and it'll give us a little extra damage when it does so. So first, we're going to put 4 points into Empowering Sigils, with 1 point into Last Wish. This will give us a % chance for it to be summoned on kill, and then again, this is going to give us healing effectiveness and then a lot of flat spell damage. We're going to go ahead and put 3 points into Decree of Flame for that flame damage per active sigil, so everyone that's active will give us this 3 plus the 4 base that you get, and then we're going to start putting points into Iron Sigils. We have 1 point now, we'll get 2 points there, and then work into the duration, get an extra one. Then for Shield Rush, we got 1 more point, gonna throw it into Stretch Time. For Holy Aura, 1 more point, gonna go ahead and keep building into our defense a bit here. We now are gonna have a shield on because we're gonna switch over from a 2-handed weapon to a 1-hand plus shield, and I'll show you why when we go over the gear and the passives. But this will give us a little bit more block with a shield. We'll obviously be blocking, so this will give us health gained on block, which will be nice. For Volatile Reversal, 1 more point, we're going to throw it into Harbinger of Dust for the enemy to take extra damage when it's hit by that rift. And then another point in Judgment, we're going to go ahead and throw in Destructive Impact for as much area as we can get. You'll get 1 more point here unless you get plus levels to skill on gear. We're going to go ahead and go into Sanctified Serenity for another 2 points. So if you have +1 level to it, get both points into here and get that extra healing effectiveness. That's a lot of extra damage. For passives, we got 10 points. We're going to cap out that Reverence of Duality. And then at this point, if you stick with a 2-hand, don't put the points where I'm about to, but because we're going to be switching over to a 1-hand plus shield, I'm going to go ahead and put 1 point in Honor, and then the rest of my points into Heaven Fire, which will give me 24 flat spell damage with a shield. We'll get 30 once we put 2 more points in there, and then after that, we'll go for the Sanctuary Guardian for another 16. That flat spell damage with a 1-hand is going to give me just as much as a 2-hand would, and then we'll also be able to put a shield on with healing effectiveness, not to mention have better survivability, which I'll show you now. So for instance, the two-hand staff we're using right now has 76 spell damage and 68 mana. Remember, flat mana gives you a more multiplier with the concentrated aura, which is really nice. We're going to switch this for a one-hand, and I'm going to go ahead and throw on the wand that's giving me mana and spell damage. So this one has about 20 less spell damage than my two-hand did, but and I was able to get 24 spell damage through passives already, not to mention we'll get another 22 as we put the rest of the passives in. We'll have more flat spell damage, and then with a shield you can put healing effectiveness on. Rhea's Light Unique is really good. Both of those together just going to give you a ton of healing effectiveness, and that healing effectiveness again adds even more flat. So this 83% healing effectiveness is another 16 flat spell damage for the skill, not to mention we'll be healed more, so it's better survivability as well. Plus you get 3 other stats. In this case we get our physical resistance, some more health, other things that you can go for. And then for idols, those healing effectiveness idols are really the ones you want. I've only got 1, but throw 3 more of those 2x2s on, and you're going to see your healing and your damage really skyrocket, so your survivability goes up and you'll be killing things even faster. Again, looking at the gear, the main thing that you want is going to be as much flat mana and increased mana as you can get, because this is going to give you the most damage, and healing effectiveness will give you even more damage on top of that healing, which will be awesome. When you have that concentrated aura up, it's going to give you a ton of healing and a ton of damage, and all of that's just going to come off of your gear with the way that we have the skill spec. But that's going to be it for this update. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll do an endgame build guide for this at some point down the road as we work on it more, but again, this is a unique free build. There is the Hands of Judgment. There are a few uniques, especially with LP, that you can use that'll give you more mana or more healing effectiveness. Feel free to throw those on if you have them, but again, the leveling guide, just no uniques, came together really well, and took us about 11 hours of playtime to get all the way to level 75.